Hello, folks. Welcome to season 2 of the GOAT series. I'm your host, Jeremy Hadler, and today I'm going to be talking about the greatest Steelers player in franchise history with special guest Dawson. And we're going to be talking about the different types of Steelers players from different eras here that have came through from the start of the Steelers defense way back then to the Big Ben era. We're going to be talking about that. Maybe Antonio Brown, maybe that, or Le'Veon Bell if we get the chance there. So let me go over the rules once again, folks. We choose 5 candidates of who we think is the greatest Steelers player of all time in franchise history up to this point as we currently are recording this. And the criteria that we look for these candidates is the accomplishments, the tenure of the team, how they played, the stats with their franchise, on and off the field, how they played. And we also do an honorable mention, and Dawson here has the opportunity to choose an honorable mention if he chooses to, which he does. And at the end of the video, we choose our ultimate Steelers GOAT. And the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl, folks. That's the facts here, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start with Dawson here. Who do you have as your honorable mention for a great Steeler?
Franco Harris.
Okay.
Simply when you think of, greatest moments in Steelers history, the Immaculate Reception has to come up. Going to all the Steelers games, you can see the statue of Franco Harris in the Immaculate Reception while waiting in line because that happened at Three River Stadium, which, was right in the parking lot of the Acrisure Stadium now. I think that was just a huge point in Steelers history. And on top of that, he was also Rookie of the Year as well as a 9-time Pro Bowler. So I think he's a phenomenal pick as an honorable mention for one of the greatest Steelers to play.
Yes, definitely. I remember watching it the first time, like, how did it even happen? And there's so many theories of, like, he dropped it, he never got it, and that's why it's the Immaculate Reception that we know today. But as everyone knows, unless you're Raider fans, it was a catch. It was a catch.
Absolutely. Jesse James also caught the football.
Yes, that's true. Jesse James also caught the football. Very crucial call many years ago, but yes. For my honorable mention, I got is Hines Ward. I thought of him, especially as a kid. I remember watching a bit. Played 14 seasons for the Steelers, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 1-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time second-team All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, made the Steelers Hall of Fame. Definitely going to make the Hall of Fame, folks. His stats, folks, 1,000 receptions, 85 receiving TDs, had over 12,511 total scrimmage yards. The things that I knew about him that from watching as a kid was his versatility, his toughness, and making playmaking abilities, and just be very versatile and play different schemes here and there where Mike Tomlin would put in. But also you would know about his hands, his route running, and his blocking too. He would just be that guy that he just make the little plays that would make a big difference in the game, especially when watching the Steelers, especially in the Super Bowl. But what do you think about him, Dawson?
Hines Ward, obviously a great player, Super Bowl MVP, right?
Yes.
To be part of any Steelers Super Bowl team, you're going to be a memorable player. But, to win an MVP just shows your value or, your value to the team. And he was also just a great guy. Like, I remember going to all the Steelers camps when I was young, and Hines Ward was always, interacting with fans. He just he was known for more than just being a great player. He was known for being a great teammate, a great Steeler. He was there his entire career. You never really saw him, acting up on the sidelines or in the media. So he's a very likable Steeler. So I love that pick.
Now let's get to our first quarterback off the list here, and we get into our 5 candidates here. We got first one off the board is Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw played 14 seasons for the Steelers, made the Hall of Fame, made the Steelers Hall of Fame. Most notably known for his 4 Super Bowls with the Steelers. He's a 4-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time Super Bowl MVP, 1-time MVP, 1 first-team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2 passing TDs leader. His stats, folks, he had over 51.9 completion percentage, 27,989 passing yards, 212 passing TDs, 210 interceptions, 70.9 passer rating. Leader, athletic, and strong arms were the 3 things that always stick out about Terry Bradshaw. What do you got about him, Dawson?
So obviously Terry Bradshaw is one of the most known Steelers quarterbacks of all time, but he played in the league that was totally different from the league today. What was it, like 26 teams in the NFL back when he played? Now that there's 32, I feel like it's a whole different league. Like, it makes it that much harder to compete for a Super Bowl because the league's much more expanded. But he was way ahead of his time, as you mentioned, just an athletic body that allowed him to just be as successful as he was. I think back then, just having that athletic pocket passer, but also being able to move, just watching old Terry Bradshaw highlights, obviously way before my time as a Steelers fan, but, brought 4 Super Bowls to the table. So definitely, one of the greatest Steelers, if not greatest quarterbacks ever played the game.
Definitely. Now, with Terry Bradshaw, the thing that really sticks out to me was like after his career of how he was perceived by the Steelers of like the holdup on being retired and inducted in the Steelers Hall of Fame. What could you say about that? Of like, what was that like for Steelers fan? Like for the Steelers like taking so long for Terry Bradshaw to just get in the Steelers Hall of Fame.
I think that's just a Rooney thing. It usually takes a while for everybody. Like the bus, Jerome Bettis, he was just inducted in the Steelers Hall of Fame, I think just recently. I was at that game. It was after COVID, maybe 2021. And he was obviously a bona fide Steelers Hall of Famer too. So I think it's just, taking a while to recognize it. Like as of now, Ben Roethlisberger's not in the Steelers Hall of Fame yet. And, that's a guy that is obviously going to make it, obviously be a first ballot NFL Hall of Famer, in my opinion. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's more of a disrespect thing to the player. I think it's more of just a Steelers tradition to just, you know, wait and wait to recognize the player. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Especially like I mean Terry Bradshaw the one sticks out to me because it's like a draw in the sand here or line in the sand to me because Bradshaw like I remember watching his Pro Football Life where he wanted to get the retire and get the recognition and it kind of and as I mentioned before about drawing a line in the sand where the fans were not happy about it. They were not very happy of getting Terry Bradshaw like not getting like the acknowledgement that he should get and the fans did not like that happening with the Roonies.
I mean, yeah, I definitely could see why. I'm baffled just the same. I'm not sure why. I mean, obviously, you know, when you win 4 Super Bowls with a franchise playing 14 seasons, like that proves you're valuable to the organization. I'm not sure why it took them so long to recognize that, but
Mhm.
obviously it's something in the front office decision. So
Let's get to our next quarterback, which we just mentioned, which is Big Ben Roethlisberger, ladies and gentlemen. Played 18 seasons for the Steelers, two-time Super Bowl champion. Would have been a third time if he beat my team, but he didn't. Sixth-time Pro Bowler, two-time passing yards leader. His stats, folks: 64.4 completion percentage, 64,088 passing yards, 418 passing TDs, 211 interceptions, 93.5 passer rating. Now, what do you think about him, Dalton? Because we grew up watching him.
yeah, I mean, this is nostalgic for me. I've been a Steelers fan my entire life, and for the first 18 seasons of Big Ben's career, that was my first 18 years of being a Steelers fan. So this is definitely a guy that holds a place in my heart as a Steelers fan. Spoiler alert, he's my pick. He's the greatest Steeler of all time. Uh, So, I
Mhm.
mean, 18 seasons compared to Terry Bradshaw's 14 seasons. Big Ben is twice the passing yards. You said Ben is just under 65,000 passing yards, Terry
Yes.
only having 28. So, Ben only playing 4 seasons more and having or over twice the amount of passing yards is just insane. Now, one thing he did only do is only win 2 Super Bowls, but like I mentioned, there's 32 teams in the NFL now. It makes it that much harder to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So for him to bring 2 Super Bowls to the table in an 18-year career, that's phenomenal. And as you know, Ben, when he took over his rookie season, he won 13 games in a row, and that's a record that probably won't be touched. To win 13
Yeah.
straight games as a rookie quarterback. So, and I was actually at Ben's last game at Acrisure Stadium, or as Heinz Field, but it was
Yeah.
Acrisure at the time, and it was just such a nostalgic moment watching him. He circled the entire stadium, trying to high five every single fan in the front row before he finally walked off the field, and it was just a very solemn moment, seeing that the quarterback that I grew up watching walking off Steelers field for the very last time.
Definitely. I think the thing that really sticks out to me is how he would turn like garbage or broken plays that just look like you're not getting anything out of it. And he would just like turn garbage into gold, I would say, because he just find ways to find guys open and try to make something out of like the play's dead and you're getting blitzed on. He would find ways to get out of that. Had a great pocket presence and strong arms. What really sticks out to me about him.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he played in the AFC North with some great defenses like Ray Lewis. He
Yep.
would just shake Ray Lewis off and throw a 50-yard bomb
Yeah.
down the field and turn, what should have been an 8-yard loss into a 50-yard touchdown. Like watching some of the plays he made, like not only was he 6'4", probably like 240 pounds of,
Yeah.
he would also just be able to, navigate the pocket and shake huge guys like, Hall of Fame defensive lineman, just shake him off and make a play. So that was something really special about his game that I loved watching.
Let's move to the defensive side, which is another well-known name that me and Dawson know very much. Really known for his hair. If you watch the Old Spice commercials with Patrick Mahomes, that's where you really know him. That is Troy Polamalu, the Tasmanian Devil in long hair. Played 12 seasons with the Steelers. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion, 4 first-team All-Pro, 2 second-team All-Pro, 8 Pro Bowls, 1-time Defensive Player of the Year, made the Steelers Hall of Fame, got inducted to the NFL Hall of Fame in 2020. His stats books, 783 tackles, 12 sacks, 32 interceptions, 14 forced fumbles, 5 defensive touchdowns, 107 passes deflected, also won the Walter Payton Man of the Year, and he won Defensive Player of the Year, as I mentioned before, by 2 votes, ladies and gentlemen, and that was by Clay Matthews. The long hair beat him out. It was the battle for the long hair that year. The key thing that always sticks out to me about Troy Polamalu, I mean, obviously the hair, but the one thing that really stuck out to me was the 2008 AFC Championship game where he had a 40-yard pick six. That is insane, especially when you're doing against the Ravens, your arch rival too. That is insane to do that. What do you got, Mel Dawson?
I mean, obviously another just great player. So fun to watch. And one thing about Troy is he wasn't that big of a player. I think Troy is like 5'10", just a little dude that just packed a punch. Like this dude could hit. So to have a 5'10", safety to be jumping with these 6'4" receivers and beating them, like, he had some absurd interceptions, as you mentioned, with 5 defensive touchdowns. For him to just, make plays against these athletic receivers as a 5'10" safety, and just proved his athleticism. I think this guy might be the greatest safety of all time. I mean, I give it to Ed Reed. One's strong safety, one's a free safety. They can both be the best, right? Best strong safety, best free safety. But definitely a phenomenal Steeler. And as you mentioned, off the field, Walter Payton Man of the Year. That's a phenomenal award. Shows the character of the player. So, another great pick for, greatest Steeler of all time.
Absolutely, like, goes right up there. Like, he is one of the players, like, as a kid, I just love watching him play, especially, like, the hitting, but, like, how good he was on defense. He was, like, a guy you hate playing against, like Tom Brady. He would hate going against Peyton Manning. You mentioned even Big Ben was on, like, the other side, and he had to go and practice. He would hate playing against Troy Polamalu because he knew that he would just get to him every time almost. He just was a maniac out there on the field and just amazing to watch, personally.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen him, like, the videos, he knew the snap count. Like, he would just blow through the line untouched because he knew the snap count. Or the blocked field goal where he was just able to just know the snap count, leap the line, and block the field goal. He just, not only was he just athletically so good, mentally he was just way ahead of the game too. Like, he knew exactly what was going to happen. Another great example is, have you seen the Pat McAfee bit where he took the 2-point conversion from him? Because Troy just knew exactly what was going on. Just the mental game intelligence he had was great.
Let's move on to our next player. Then we got more player after that, and then we get to our ultimate GOAT of Steelers, folks. Next player on the list is Joe Green, known as Mean Joe. Played 13 seasons with the Steelers. He's a 4-time Super Bowl champion, like the Terry Bradshaw era, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, won NFL Man of the Year at the time before it was called Walter Payton Man of the Year, 5 first-team All-Pro, 3 second-team All-Pro, 10 Pro Bowls, made the Steelers Hall of Fame, retired the Steelers, played 181 games. His stats books, 75.5 sacks, 16 fumble recoveries, 1 interception. Now, this is given during the time where sacks were not officially recorded and some stats weren't up to date when he played in his era. So those are the stats that you can go check out on Pro Football Reference. And he got, as I mentioned before, inducted in the Hall of Fame, and he was the leader of that Steelers defense, that Steel defense. What do you think about him, Dawson?
I mean, as you just mentioned, the leader of the Steel Curtain. I think at this point, this might have been the greatest defense of all time. Would you agree with that? If not one, they're top 3. They're known to be the most dominant era of defensive football. That's one thing. I've never seen Joe Green play, way before my time. That's late 70s. But this would have been the era of Steelers football that I would have wanted to witness. So like I can't talk a lot about how he means to Steelers fans because I'm a whole new era of Steelers fans. To me, he's just one of those legendary players that you can hear like my parents talk about, other older Steelers fans talk about. But for sure, just a great player from a great era of football.
Yeah, I think the thing, I mean, we mentioned about the leadership there, especially like emotional, very motivational, send the tone for the team on the special line defense. Other thing that really sticks out to me is his versatility and how dominant he was. Like, he could play both the defensive tackle and the end, whether like you want to put him in different schemes and all that, he could like be adaptable to that, which is pretty good. And he was so dominant, especially with his strength, ability to collapse the pocket, create nightmares for the opposing quarterbacks, especially during that time where it wasn't that much of a QB like passing as we know today in football, where Joe Green just still made impact no matter what, and he just be a nightmare for this quarterback and this offensive lineman. And just an amazing player, I would say. Just an amazing player.
Yeah, one thing I've heard about Joe Green is that like he was never injured. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I'm not sure what his play rate is, like how often he played compared to when he sat out, but I know he played through some, gnarly injuries throughout his career just because he was, he wanted to compete. He was a competitor. So
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get to our last player here, folks, before we get to our ultimate Steelers GOAT. That is Jack Lambert. Played 11 seasons with the Steelers, 4-time Super Bowl champion. He was a part of that steel curtain with Joe Green and Terry Bradshaw era. 1-time Defensive Player of the Year, 1 Defensive Rookie of the Year, 6 First-Team All-Pro, 2 Second-Team All-Pro, 9 Pro Bowls, made the All-Rookie team, made the Steelers Hall of Fame. His stats, folks, had over 1,479 tackles, 28 interceptions, 17 fumble recoveries, 23.5 sacks, got inducted in NFL Hall of Fame in 1990. Again, the stats I mentioned for this is with their team, and this is what the stats were during that time frame. And his nickname is Dracula in Cleats, folks. That is a fantastic name. What do you got about Dawson?
I mean, it's very similar to what I had to say about Joe Green, just a great player that played before, the era that I'm used to of Steelers football. Looking back at his stats, looking back at some of the, the highlights from the 4 Super Bowls that they won together, just looked like a great player. Like, to have Joe Green and Jack Lambert on the same team, both coming at you, has to be an absolute nightmare for offenses. We're talking about 2 of, the greatest defensive players of all time running down your throat every single play. So I think, Joe Green and Jack Lambert might have made each other better just because of, how do you stop them both? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he never missed tackles too, especially like when you would read articles, which I did about him when I was doing my research on him. He just never missed tackles. He had great instincts like Troy Polamalu, like he would know the snap count. Jack Lambert, he would just know kind of what the plays were coming to him and just be ready for that.
Mhm. I mean, defense is a lot of, how mentally tough you are too. And that's, what they talk about for Joe Green and Jack Lambert. They were just as mentally tough as they were physically tough. So they just, could read what the offense is doing and make a play instantly. So
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get to our ultimate GOAT here for the Steelers. We'll start with our guest, Dawson. Who do you have for your Steeler GOATs?
So initially, whenever you asked me to be a part of the video, I was like, "Oh, it's Troy Polamalu, I think." And then the more I thought into it, like, I think it's Big Ben Roethlisberger. I think,
Okay.
as a player and just nostalgia of, being a quarterback for 18 seasons, I'm saying the greatest Steeler of all time is Big Ben. So I'm not saying that as like he was, you know, Antonio Brown had a great short career, right?
Yeah.
Troy Polamalu, another phenomenal guy, but a shorter career. Big Ben played 18 seasons and was just a loved player for 18 seasons. So if I'm picking one Steeler player that stands out, it's Ben Roethlisberger.
Sweet. So there you go, folks. You got for Dawson, Big Ben here. For me, I'm going more the defensive side here. I like Troy Polamalu a lot. I really like, especially his off the field of being a great character. But the other guy that really sticks out to me is Joe Green. I mean, you look at Joe Green of how the Steel Curtain, he was the huge leader on that, dominated his position, considered one of the best at his position, won the Super Bowl 4 times with that team, won Defensive Player of the Year twice, 5 first-team All-Pros and 3 second-team All-Pros, 10 Pro Bowls, 10 Pro Bowls, which is amazing. And he was played through the injuries, and he was just a great, outstanding leader. To me, I think it's Joe Green, just because he was very good with that culture too, the Steelers, because Pittsburgh, they love Joe Green. Like he would be like, especially in the community, he would really help out there, especially when the NFL Man of the Year. So for me, I'm gonna have to give it to Joe Green here as my ultimate Steeler GOAT, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, that's very fair. I mean, all 5 of these guys in this list, are deserving of the title. Like you could pick any 5, and any Steeler fans be like, "Oh, what a great player!" They're not going to argue with you. So, you know, each of these 5 players have such a great argument for the greatest Steeler of all time.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, Big Ben, I mean, like play the most seasons out of all the candidates here. Terry Bradshaw, I mean, didn't have the stats, but he won those Super Bowls, won MVP at his position. Where Big Ben, he was really the franchise guy. You look at Jack Lambert, another great defensive player. Troy Pomo was the Steeler guy. He was the Steeler guy with Big Ben during his time, made credible plays, like I mentioned with that pick six earlier. Defensive player, dominant too. Like all of these players were very dominant at their position, but that's who we got here on this list, folks. But let me know what you guys think here. Who do you think should have been the GOAT for Ultimate Steeler GOAT here, folks? And who should have mentioned on this list? Antonio Brown, maybe. Le'Veon Bell, just go listen to his rap songs. Go listen to that. But you let us know in the chat, folks. Let us know in the chat. And stay tuned for our next episode as we still continue in the AFC North, ladies and gentlemen. And Dawson, thank you again for coming on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. That's a wrap for this video, folks. We'll see you next time. Peace. All right. That is.